My daughter-in-law shaved my husband's head on our son's wedding morning and called it a prank. I opened the bathroom door at 6:47 a.m., 3 hours before the ceremony was scheduled to begin, and found my husband of 42 years standing frozen before the mirror. His beautiful silver hair, the hair he had been so proud of, the hair that had turned white at the temples when he was 35 and completely silver by 50, the hair that made him look distinguished and elegant, was gone. Not trimmed, not styled differently. Gone. Shaved down to the scalp in uneven patches, some areas completely bald, others with random tufts sticking up at odd angles. He looked like he had been attacked. He looked like he had been violated. He looked like a man whose dignity had been stripped away on the morning of his only son's wedding, and standing behind him, holding a phone with the camera still recording, was my daughter-in-law, Stephanie. She was laughing, actually laughing. "Oh my God, his face!" she giggled, zooming in on my husband's devastated expression. "This is going to go so viral. The groomsmen are going to die when they see this." My husband, my Emmanuel, hadn't moved. He was staring at himself in the mirror with an expression I had never seen in 4 decades of marriage. Humiliation, complete devastating humiliation. "What have you done?" I whispered. Stephanie finally noticed me in the doorway. "Oh, Vivian, you're up early. Don't worry, it's just a prank. Derek thought it would be hilarious if his dad matched the groomsmen. They're all getting buzz cuts for the wedding. Solidarity, you know." "Derek asked you to do this?" "Well, not exactly, but he'll think it's funny. Everyone will think it's funny. It's just hair, Vivian. It'll grow back." I looked at my husband, at his trembling hands, at the tears he was fighting to hold back, at the man who had spent 67 years building a life of dignity and respect, now standing in his bathroom looking like a victim. "Get out," I said quietly. "What?" "Get out of this bathroom, now." "Vivienne, it's a joke." "Get out." She flinched at my voice, the first time I had ever raised it at her in the 3 years since she and Derek had gotten engaged. She left, still clutching her phone, muttering something about people not being able to take a joke. I closed the door, and I went to my husband. "My name is Vivian Okafor. I am 64 years old. I was born in Ibadan, Nigeria, and I came to America at 22 with a nursing degree and a heart full of hope. I met Emmanuel Okafor at a church in Baltimore when I was 23 and he was 25. He was the most handsome man I had ever seen. Tall, confident, with a smile that made my knees weak and a laugh that filled every room he entered. We married a year later. We raised 2 sons together, Derek, now 32, and Marcus, 28. We built a life of quiet dignity, hard work, and deep love. Emmanuel was a professor of African history at Johns Hopkins for 35 years. He was respected by his colleagues, beloved by his students, and revered by his community. He had written 7 books, delivered lectures around the world, and received awards and honors too numerous to count. He was a man of substance, a man of presence, a man whose silver hair was part of his identity, the visual representation of the wisdom and experience he had accumulated over a lifetime. And Stephanie had shaved it off for a TikTok video. Let me tell you about Stephanie. She came into our lives 4 years ago when Derek brought her home for Christmas dinner. She was beautiful. There was no denying that. Blonde, blue-eyed, with the kind of polished appearance that came from expensive salons and careful attention to detail. But from the moment I met her, something felt wrong. She smiled too much, laughed too loudly, agreed with everything anyone said. It was like watching a performance, a carefully crafted presentation of the perfect girlfriend designed to charm and disarm. Emmanuel noticed it too. "There's something hollow about her," he said that night after they had left. "She's playing a role. Maybe she's just nervous. Meeting the parents for the first time is stressful." "Perhaps. But watch her, Vivian. Watch how she treats people when she thinks no one is looking." I watched. And over the next 4 years, I saw exactly what Emmanuel had seen. Stephanie was kind to us, performatively kind. She brought gifts, remembered birthdays, made a show of helping in the kitchen and complimenting my cooking. But I saw how she treated waiters, dismissive, impatient, quick to complain. I saw how she spoke to her own mother, condescending, eye-rolling, barely concealing her contempt. I saw how she reacted when things didn't go her way, the flash of anger in her eyes, quickly masked but unmistakable. And I saw how she had slowly, systematically isolated Derek from his family. The weekly calls became monthly. The holiday visits became shorter, more stressful, filled with excuses about why they needed to leave early. Marcus, our younger son, told us that Derek had stopped answering his texts, that Stephanie was always present when they spoke, monitoring the conversation. "She's controlling him," Marcus said. "He's not the same person anymore." I wanted to intervene. I wanted to pull Derek aside and ask him if he was happy, if this was really what he wanted, if he understood what he was giving up. But Emmanuel stopped me. "He's a grown man, Vivian. He has to make his own choices. If we push too hard, we'll lose him completely." So we stayed silent. We smiled at the engagement announcement. We helped plan the wedding. We wrote checks for the venue, the catering, the flowers, $47,000 of our retirement savings, because Stephanie wanted a dream wedding, and Derek couldn't say no. We watched our son slip further and further away, and we told ourselves it would get better. It didn't. The wedding morning was supposed to be a celebration. Emmanuel and I had arrived at the venue the night before, a beautiful estate in the Maryland countryside that Stephanie had insisted upon. We'd stayed in the guest cottage, excited to watch our son begin his new life. Emmanuel had spent an hour getting ready that morning. He had laid out his suit, a custom-made three-piece in charcoal gray, purchased specifically for this occasion. He had polished his shoes until they gleamed. He had trimmed his beard and combed his silver hair, the hair that had been his trademark for decades. "How do I look?" he had asked me, turning from the mirror with a smile. "Like the most handsome man I've ever known." "After 42 years, you're still flattering me." After 42 years, it's still true. He had kissed me then, a soft, gentle kiss that reminded me of our own wedding day, when we were young and full of dreams. And then he had gone to the main house to see Derek. That's where Stephanie found him. She told him that Derek wanted to see him in the bathroom, something about helping with his cufflinks. Emmanuel went without suspicion, and when he got there, Stephanie was waiting. "Sit down, Dad," she said, using the title she had adopted despite us never inviting her to do so. "Derek wanted me to help you with something." She had drugged his coffee. That's what the doctor told us later. A mild sedative. Not enough to knock him out, but enough to make him compliant, confused, unable to resist. By the time he realized what was happening, half his hair was already gone. "It's a prank," she kept saying as she shaved. "Derek's gonna love it. All the groomsmen are doing it. You'll match." Emmanuel tried to stop her. He grabbed her wrist, but the sedative had made him weak, uncoordinated. She finished the job while he sat there, helpless, horrified, watching his reflection transform into something unrecognizable. When I found them, she had already uploaded the video to TikTok. "Pranking my father-in-law on wedding morning. #wedding pranks. #viral moment. #got him." I stood in that bathroom for 10 minutes, holding my husband while he cried. 67 years old, a man of dignity and accomplishment, crying because his son's fiancée had drugged him and shaved his head for internet attention. "I can't go out there," he whispered. "I can't let people see me like this." "You don't have to do anything you don't want to do." "But Derek, the wedding. Derek should have protected you from this. He should have warned us. He should have stopped her." "Maybe he didn't know." "Emmanuel." I pulled back to look at him. "She said Derek wanted you to match the groomsmen. Either she's lying, or he was part of this." The look on his face when he processed that possibility, the possibility that his own son had participated in his humiliation, broke something inside me. I made a decision in that moment. A cold, clear decision. Stephanie was going to learn. What happens when you hurt the people I love? I helped Emmanuel get dressed. I found a traditional Nigerian kufi cap in his luggage. He had packed it as a backup, planning to change into traditional attire for the reception dinner. He wore it to cover his head. He looked dignified despite everything. And I took him to the wedding, because I needed to see. I needed to see if Derek had known. I needed to understand the full scope of the betrayal before I responded. The ceremony was held in a garden behind the main house. 200 guests. White chairs arranged in perfect rows, a flower-covered arch where Derek stood waiting with his groomsmen. his groomsmen, who all had normal haircuts, not buzz cuts, not shaved heads, normal hair. Stephanie had lied. There was no solidarity gesture, no groomsman matching the father of the groom. She had simply wanted to humiliate my husband for content. Derek saw us approaching and his face changed. Confusion first, probably wondering about the kufi cap, then concern, then, as we got closer, recognition. He had seen the video. "Dad, he started. "Not now," Emmanuel said, his voice steady despite everything. "We'll discuss this after your wedding." I didn't know she was going to. After the wedding, Derek. My son, my firstborn, the child I had nursed through fevers and celebrated through triumphs, looked at his father with something I had never seen before. Guilt. He had known. Maybe not the specifics, but he had known Stephanie was planning something, and he hadn't warned us. The ceremony proceeded. Stephanie walked down the aisle in her designer gown, radiant and beautiful, completely unconcerned about what she had done. She smiled at us as she passed, actually smiled, like we were all in on the joke. Derek and Stephanie exchanged vows. They kissed. They were pronounced husband and wife. Everyone applauded, and I sat in the front row holding Emmanuel's hand, planning the consequences. The reception was in full swing when I made my move. Dinner had been served. Toasts had been given. The cake had been cut. Stephanie was on the dance floor, surrounded by her bridesmaids, basking in the attention of being a bride. I approached the DJ booth. "I'd like to play a video," I said, a surprise for the couple. The DJ smiled. "Of course, we love surprise presentations. What is it?" "A tribute to my son and his new wife. I've put it together myself." "That's so sweet. Let me set up the projector." 5 minutes later, the music stopped. The lights dimmed, and the video began playing on the large screen behind the head table. The first clip was the TikTok Stephanie had uploaded that morning, pranking my father-in-law on wedding morning. The video showed Emmanuel, drugged, confused, vulnerable, sitting in a chair while Stephanie shaved his head, her laughter, his horror, the uneven patches of hair falling to the floor. The room went silent. 200 guests watching a bride drug and assault her father-in-law for internet content. But I wasn't done. The next clip was a compilation I had spent 3 years collecting. Stephanie at a restaurant, berating a waitress until she cried. Stephanie on a phone call, mocking her own mother's weight. Stephanie at a family barbecue, rolling her eyes at Marcus while he talked about his new job. Stephanie in our kitchen, when she didn't know I was recording, telling Derek that his parents were embarrassing, and she couldn't wait until they weren't a problem anymore. "They're so old and traditional," video Stephanie said. "Once they're gone, we can finally do what we want. I'm just waiting for them to die, honestly." The room gasped. I had saved the best for last. The final clip was a recording from 2 weeks ago. Stephanie on the phone with a man who was clearly not Derek. "I know, babe, I know. But I need to get through this wedding first. His parents are paying for everything. I'll milk them for the honeymoon, too. Then we can be together. Derek's such a pushover. He won't even notice when I leave him." The video ended. The lights came up. And Stephanie stood in the middle of the dance floor, surrounded by 200 guests who now knew exactly who she was. Her face had gone from pink to white to a color I can only describe as gray. She was trembling. Actually trembling. That's not, I didn't," she stammered. "You didn't what?" I walked toward her, my voice calm and steady. "You didn't drug my husband this morning? You didn't shave his head for TikTok views? You didn't call his parents embarrassing? You didn't say you were waiting for us to die? You didn't plan to cheat on our son? I can explain." "You can't explain anything. It's all on video. Your own videos, your own words, your own choices." Derek had risen from the head table. His face was a mask of shock and pain. "Stephanie, the phone call, who was that man?" "Derek, baby, it's not what it looks like. You said you were going to leave me. You said I was a pushover. You said—" His voice broke. "You said you were waiting for my parents to die." "I was joking." "That's not a joke." The room erupted. Guests were murmuring, some standing, some pulling out their phones to record. Stephanie's parents were frozen in their seats, clearly horrified. Her bridesmaids had scattered like they didn't know her. And Stephanie, beautiful, polished, perfect Stephanie was standing alone in the middle of her dream wedding, watching everything crumble. "I've also sent copies of these videos to your employer," I said, "and to your other boyfriend, Jake, I believe his name is, and to the police, since drugging someone and filming them without consent is a crime in Maryland." "You can't." "I already have. My son Marcus helped me compile everything. He's very tech-savvy. He's also very protective of his father." Marcus stepped forward from the crowd, his phone in his hand. "Hi, Stephanie. Remember when you told Derek to stop talking to me? Remember when you said I was too much drama to have around? Remember when you tried to convince him that I was a bad influence?" He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I remember everything." Stephanie looked around desperately, for help, for support, for anyone willing to defend her. She found no one. "Derek, please." She reached for my son. He stepped back. "Don't touch me. Don't ever touch me again." "We just got married, and we're going to get unmarried as fast as legally possible." He looked at his father, at the kufi cap covering his violated scalp, and his face crumpled. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I knew she was planning something. She told me it was just a harmless prank, something fun for social media. I didn't know she would. I never thought she would." "You should have told us," Emmanuel said quietly. "You should have trusted us over her." I know. I'll spend the rest of my life making this up to you." "You can start," I said, "by signing the annulment papers. My lawyer is drawing them up as we speak." "You already have a lawyer?" "I've had a lawyer on standby for 3 years, Derek, ever since I realized what kind of person you were marrying." I looked at Stephanie one last time. I stayed silent because I hoped I was wrong. I hoped she would prove me wrong. Instead, she drugged my husband and shaved his head for likes. I turned to address the room. "I apologize to all of you for the disruption. Please enjoy the rest of the evening. The food and drinks are paid for, and there's no reason for them to go to waste." I smiled, and for the first time that day, I felt something close to peace. Consider this a celebration of the truth. It's always worth celebrating when people finally see clearly. I took Emmanuel's hand. We walked out of the reception together. Behind us, I could hear Stephanie crying, screaming, begging Derek to listen. But we didn't look back. The annulment was finalized within 2 months. Maryland allows annulments in cases of fraud, and Stephanie's recorded statements, admitting she was using Derek, planning to leave him, waiting for his parents to die, constituted clear evidence of fraudulent intent. She got nothing. No settlement, no alimony, no portion of the wedding funds we had contributed. The police declined to press charges for the drugging. The sedative was mild and prosecutors didn't consider it worth pursuing. But her employer saw the videos. She was fired within a week. Her other boyfriend, Jake, saw the videos too. He wanted nothing to do with her. Her parents stopped speaking to her after the wedding. Her friends distanced themselves. Her social media accounts, once filled with thousands of followers, were overrun with comments about the father-in-law prank and her recorded statements. She became a cautionary tale, the bride who destroyed herself at her own wedding. And me? I took Emmanuel to see a barber the day after the wedding, a proper barber, who evened out the damage and gave him a clean, dignified cut. "It's actually not bad," Emmanuel said, studying himself in the mirror. "I might keep it short." "You look handsome no matter what. You're biased." "After 42 years, I'm allowed to be biased." He laughed. The first real laugh I had heard from him since that morning. His hair grew back over the next few months, silver again, maybe a little thinner, but his. The wound to his dignity took longer to heal. He had nightmares for a while, waking up in a panic, reaching for his head, relieved to find his hair still there. He didn't trust easily anymore. He questioned people's motives in a way he never had before. But slowly, with time and love, he became himself again. The man I married. The man I will love until my last breath. Derek spent the first year after the annulment in therapy. He had a lot to unpack. How Stephanie had manipulated him, isolated him, convinced him that his family was the problem. He called us every week. He visited every month. He apologized so many times that Emmanuel finally told him to stop. "You made a mistake," my husband said. "You trusted the wrong person. But you're still our son, and we still love you." "I should have protected you, Dad. I should have stopped her." You should have. You didn't, and now you know better. That's what growth looks like. Derek is 35 now. He's dating someone new, a woman named Grace who treats us with genuine warmth, not performance. She doesn't bring excessive gifts or laugh too loudly or agree with everything we say. She just listens. She asks questions. She treats waiters with kindness and speaks to her parents with respect. She's real. And when Derek brought her home for the first time, Emmanuel watched her carefully across the dinner table. Later that night, he gave his verdict. I like this one. So do I. She has good eyes, honest eyes. I noticed. Maybe this time it will work. Maybe it will. If this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and whether you've ever had to stay silent while planning the perfect response. Like and subscribe for more stories about dignity, patience, and the consequences that come for those who think they can hurt people without paying the price. It's just a prank. That's what my daughter-in-law said after she drugged my husband and shaved his head on our son's wedding morning. It'll grow back. Everyone will think it's funny. It's just hair. She recorded the whole thing for TikTok. She laughed while my husband sat there, violated and humiliated. She called it content. I stayed silent. I helped my husband cover his head. I attended the wedding. I smiled through the ceremony. And then, at the reception, I played a few videos of my own, the TikTok she uploaded that morning, the recordings of her mocking his family, the phone call where she told another man she was just waiting for us to die. 200 guests, one screen, every truth revealed. She trembled, actually trembled, standing in the middle of her dream wedding, watching it all burn down. It's just a prank, she had said, but the consequences were very, very real.